civil now, we're reporters.
Same one. I'm gonna have to get a minute because the screen's starting to collapse on me.
I don't know if you can replace.
No, not like that.
Okay. 5 o'clock, time to call the Millersville Planning Commission meeting together, Tuesday, June the 12th, 2018. I'd ask you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Gregg, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Frank Fox.
Present.
Vice Chairman Larry Petty.
Present.
Secretary David Gregory here. Mr. Keith Bell here. Mr. Lee Smith. Mr. Brent Aldridge here. Mrs. Deborah Wade.
Present.
Everybody's here, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Item 4, disclosure of ex parte communications. Does anybody have any comment to make relative to anything that's on the agenda that you've had with a constituent that's of substantive that has to do with any decision we're going to make this evening? All right, let the record show there's no disclosures to be made. Those of you that had an opportunity to read the May 18th, last month's meeting minutes, please look over them, and I'd love to entertain a motion that will be approved, disapproved, or corrected.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting, May 8th, 2018.
Mr. McGregor is on the 1, Ms. Wade is on the 2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
I abstain. I was actually.
Bell abstain. Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Bell. We have items on the agenda. Does anybody from the Reynolds family want to speak at this time? And if you got something to say, this is time for public comments.
You have any questions about it?
Will.
We're trying to answer.
All right, let's then, we'll carry on. Thank you very much, and we'll do that if we need to. All right. Action items. Action item number 1, rezone 1246 Louisville Highway, Sumner County map 121, parcel 62.01 from R2 to commercial C1.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the first action tonight, it was discovered as we were working through the site plan for expanding City Hall recently that the zoning is not correctly assigned to this property as it should be, and most in particular, the NP1 overlay district doesn't allow for municipal facilities or government facilities in commercially zoned parcels. So that being said, while the building and its expansion would be considered an existing non-conforming use and would be technically allowed by our code, the mayor felt it was appropriate that we go ahead and bring the property here to City Hall in compliance with its zoning. So looking to move it through the zoning amendment process to take it from residential R2 to commercial C1. That zoning would match up with a lot of the other parcels that front Louisville Highway here, besides actually working real well for the current use of the property. And I'm recommending approval of this to take to the City Commission for approval.
All right. I'll entertain a motion that we rezone 1246 Louisville Highway from residential R2 to commercial C1.
I move that we approve the rezoning of 1246 Louisville Highway, Sumner County map 121, parcel 62.01 from residential R2 to commercial C1.
All right, is there a second? And Mr. Petty is on the second. Thank you very much, Mr. Petty. All right, Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
No comment.
No comment. Highly unusual.
Not yet.
All right, anybody have a question? All right. Are you ready for question? Ready for motion? Ready for question? If you're ready for question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show, passed by unanimous vote, please, ma'am.
All right,
Item
Mr.
C.
Chairman, next property here, next rather item, if you'd like, go ahead and grab one, distribute it down, share. This is a two-part action for this item. One is the commercial site plan for the expansion of City Hall. That's actually adding on, I believe, about 10 to 11,000 square feet total. A good chunk of that, probably close to a third of it, will be left unfinished. But with the expansion, it'll make the City Hall facility here much more user-friendly, and it'll provide for a safer and secure environment here for the staff. Right now, as most of you are aware, we're on top of each other here. We have limited space. Once the expansion happens, then we'll look at some more work on the old portions of the building to also make them, modernize them, and make them more secure for both the fire and police departments. But primarily now, the expansion benefits the administrative end of City Hall, including the clerks, building department, development services, accounting, parks, recreation, the gamut of most of our staff here, with the exception of police and fire. So that being said, you'll see the footprint there. There'll be some minor changes to the parking as well. The engineer who's preparing this was contracted through the city commission for this. It's about a $2 million project that will happen over about the course of 2 years. Once it's up and running, it should make for a much more efficient function here of the city. But since OHM did design it, we had another engineer take a look at it to make sure that it's compliant with the zoning as well as other typical municipal standards, and they felt that it was satisfactory. Staff loves it. Evidently, the city commission is highly in favor of it. So I am recommending approval of the commercial site plan. And in addition, I've passed out the front elevation, and you'll see that what the building is proposed to look like. It is complementary to the community center and the library, and some of the older style salt box or cracker box with the shed dormers up top. We'll have brick above that. It does, while it does meet the exterior finish requirements in our code, y'all have asked that we bring these elevations to you for approval on a case-by-case basis anyway. So it does meet our standards. I'm just looking for your blessing on that as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barr. Entertain a motion that we approve the commercial site plan and front elevation for 1246 Louisville Highway.
Make a motion, Mr. Gregg, to approve commercial site plan and front elevation material review 1246 Louisville Highway.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Owen, thank you. Any discussion? Ready for question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Let the record show it passed right now. Vote please, ma'am. Now, item C is rezone 1389 and 1391 Louisville Highway from commercial C to residential 4.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, this is a two-part action, although we're only considering the rezoning at this meeting. This is another one of the parcels that we have in the city that has multiple primary structures on them. And in this case, it's an 1.5 acre parcel that has 2 homes on it. The current owner of the parcel is looking to split it, but in order to split it, we have to bring it into conformity for its zoning and its, to match its use. So, that being said, in order to subdivide it into 2 parcels, we'll need to bring the zoning into a residential class. This would fit, I believe, for residential 4, which is a minimum of 20,000 square feet. By dividing it lengthwise, it will still meet all of the standards and dimensional requirements for the residential R4, so there shouldn't be any need to come back for any kind of special exceptions to setbacks or any other changes to the residential R4. But I want to talk about bigger picture issues, and I've passed out a map here of zoning for that area, and I've labeled the zoning. You'll see that on this side of the road, most of these parcels are zoned commercial 1, and that goes back to the 1999 map that was adopted by the city. Staff has looked at this, even in consultation with the previous city manager. We've felt that it's not likely that we're going to have a whole lot of commercial development in this section of the city that fronts a dangerous section of Louisville Highway. It's not very appealing. Dimensionally, the lots really would be difficult to develop for commercial use. Almost all these parcels in there have residences on them currently. They did at the time. I can understand that the city would desire to increase the commercial development opportunities as far as they can, but it's just really not practical mostly because of access and the terrain. There's a pretty good drop off coming off of the highway there. So you'll find that most of these parcels, while they may have a small driveway coming off a Louisville highway, most people access off of Raider Road, which is a much safer road. The utilities are all off of Raider Road. And like I mentioned earlier, most of the parcels there remain residential, and probably will be that way for some time. Just to the north, we have residential. Right across the road, across Raider, we have residential. Actually, on the other side of Louisville Highway, between the 2 auto salvage yards, we have residential. And to the south of that, we have high-density residential with the R5. I've highlighted a couple of items on that sheet. One is a dashed outline of 2 parcels just to the south of the blue subject parcel. That was just recently acquired by a local developer who's looking to build some townhomes there. They're going to bring a similar rezoning request to you all to start that process. They're looking at just their driveway and parking lot coming off of Raider Road. Again, it's pretty steep coming off of the highway across from the salvage yard. It's up to you all as a body to decide whether this is appropriate to change this over to residential along that section of the highway. But we're not considering that tonight. We're only considering the 1 parcel that's colored up in blue. I do have 2 asterisks on there in blue to the south of there. One is being used, actually both are being used as equipment storage yards. To my knowledge, there's no intention to build any commercial facilities there at this time. So on this section of roadway, there is no commercial development between the Atlas Powder Road and all the way up the ridge on this side of the highway. Honestly, I don't anticipate there being much commercial development along there. I mean, you could build a business there. Are your customers going to stop? I can't speak to that. I think it's unlikely though. But again, that's up to you all. We can have a conversation about it too if you'd like. But Ms. Jones will not be able to split her parcel there unless it's been rezoned to residential to bring it in conformity.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Why does she want to split it?
I believe she needs to sell 1/2 of it That's my understanding from her, either her grandson or her nephew, I'm not sure exactly.
Or folder to do that.
Yes, sir.
That means 2 more homes could possibly be built on.
You could not have 2 additional homes. You will only have the 2 homes either that are there or if they're replaced. We're not adding any other homes to it.
No, a folder is every, what, 20,000 square feet?
A minimum of 20,000 square feet. So we're only splitting, they're only gonna split it into half. So they're only gonna create 2 lots.
Have they already showed you the proposed split?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how is this, what is this?
Lengthwise from the highway to Greater Road,
6.75 acres on each side
approximately.
with a house on each of those lots?
Yes, sir. As they're currently set. One of the homes may be torn down and replaced. And actually, that would be a good thing. It's pretty old inventory. It's in pretty serious disrepair, and it'll give an opportunity to bring it into setback conformity. So, really no changes to the use of the land, other than we're gonna bring it into conformity so they can split it, which our code requires to happen before we can do a subdivision on it.
Well, I'll just save mine for the next one of the townhouses. But, you know, anybody that's ever been up Greater Road knows it's not much more than a driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And you put townhomes.
We'll talk about that perhaps next month.
On what we're doing tonight, that's not.
Well, the other option, let's close the loop on the townhomes. The other option is the developer could make a request to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception to allow for multifamily in a commercial district. That is an option that our code allows. My interpretation of that is that it becomes a mix or a blend, so you do have commercial with the residential. You don't just have residential multifamily only. That's why I'm recommending that they go to a rezoning on it. But technically, by the literal reading of the multifamily use by special exception in the commercial districts, technically they could just do that with an approval from the BZA. Although I'm not favoring that way to go about. But we'll talk about that next month.
Let's move on.
All right, I want to entertain a motion relative to item C, rezone 1389, 1391 Louisville Highway from commercial 1 to residential 4.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Petty, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gregory, a second. All right, is there any discussion? Are you ready for questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Let the record show it's passed by unanimous vote, please. Item D, in action item, amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 90, Use Classification, Section 90, and Chapter 90, Section 90-8, Use Classification System, and Section 90-332, Adult Entertainment District.
Mr. Chairman, this may be a sensitive conversation tonight.
Well, does anybody need to get up and leave? Pretty straightforward, in my humble opinion.
Let me add on here that I've spoken with some of our sister communities around us, White House, Goodlettsville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Springfield, and Portland. And each of them, without exception, allow for tattoo and piercing businesses in their commercial districts. Some of them have a little more restriction in the commercial, but the general interpretation out there among my fellow planners and our other cities neighboring is that this is a personal service that is not unlike either a barbershop or a hair salon. And actually, as a side note, if we want to take a very technical, literal interpretation of our code that only allows tattooing and piercings in the adult entertainment zoning district, of which we have none right now, by the way. And just for your own edification, the adult entertainment district is what you probably are thinking it is. It is dance halls, strips, movies, novelty stores, whatever you pretty much can classify. By law, we're supposed to provide that as an option to businesses somewhere in our community, and we meet that standard. Obviously, it would have to happen with a rezoning for that kind of business to be located there. And then there are some pretty strict standards as far as minimum separations from public gathering places, schools, churches, those sorts of businesses. In other cities, just as a side note, adult entertainment activities and uses are generally allowed in heavy industrial zonings. Millersville is a little unusual that we have our own zoning district for adult entertainment. But we do meet the standards for satisfying the state and the civil rights of whomever out there in the adult entertainment industry wants to locate a business here. There is a way to go about that, although I'm sure it's unlikely it would be approved, but nevertheless, I do want to point out that if we take that literal interpretation of the piercing and the tattooing, that would limit even jewelry stores that sell earrings from piercing somebody's ears, because it is specifically only allowed in the adult entertainment district. So if you had a jewelry store that they were able to pierce ears, it would not be allowed. We would have to prohibit that. Medical offices, let's give you like a reconstructive surgeon that perhaps is tattooing eyebrows or lip liner from either a cosmetic perspective, or let's even talk reconstructive surgery that requires some tattooing. Technically, it would not be allowed in office districts or other commercial districts. But the meat of this is that we're looking at businesses that are interested in your typical tattooing and piercing. As I mentioned, all of our sister cities out there allow it. And in fact, they're already, the businesses are in place today in these districts. I find it hard not to recommend. I'm struggling with this, honestly, because I know there's some stigma to these kinds of businesses, but they really do more closely align with personal care and personal service businesses than they do with adult entertainment, in my opinion. But I am happy to turn this back to the board and let you converse about it or ask questions and take action as you feel you need to. Mr. Chairman.
Did y'all get through all that? Did y'all hear what he said? That we're gonna move tattoo parlors from adult entertainment to C1, okay? That's all we're gonna do. I hear a motion. I hear a motion. Move tattoo parlors and body piercing establishments from adult entertainment district to commercial district.
That would eliminate, me asking a question, that would eliminate the adult entertainment bookstore, movies, whatever.
Oh, it wouldn't change any of that, no, sir. It would change none of that.
So no matter
That would remain in.
How, in my opinion, and I'm not for any of that, how do we keep that out of the city?
I think the way it's written right now,
But
pretty
if
much
we change
keeps
it
it out
to
of the
the,
city.
to the tattooing, then you're gonna allow.
Only the tattooing and the piercing is what I'm recommending to change from, to remove it from the adult entertainment zoning and allow it as a permitted use in commercial district.
Okay, and since we have no adult entertainment district, then that would be totally separate.
That is totally separate, yes, sir.
Make a motion to move that to C1.
We have a,
What was the motion?
we have a motion,
Move it to C1.
move, we have, move it from action item D, effectively move adult, body piercing, tattoo parlors from adult entertainment district to commercial district, C1. Mr. Petty has made a motion to do that. Is there a second, please? Then we can have some discussion.
I'm gonna take a second on it, just so we can have the discussion.
All right.
That's the first one I've ever done.
Mr. Smith.
Well, when you brought up like jewelry stuff, well, let's say we get a strip center. Why don't, what? Not
Strip mall.
Strip mall. I'm sorry.
Strip mall.
A row of stone.
Okay, let's clarify what we just said.
If a jewelry shop wants to go in, they would not be able to unless we pass it.
They would not be allowed to get piercings.
Get piercings, and that may be a part of it.
And I'm talking, on the ears, but
Wherever.
inside the nose, the lip,
I said
and I can
wherever.
expand.
I said wherever. You've already expanded more than one enough.
Yeah.
So that would be the reason that I would,
TMI.
look at it. And then if it's an individual business, we look at it further from that.
Mr. Bell has the floor.
If I could contribute something right now for Mr. Smith, perhaps, and it just occurred to me, perhaps we could allow it by special use or special exception from the BZA in the commercial zones instead of having it as a permitted use.
We're gonna use special exception on this, why not use special exception on adult escort services when they get here? Because if we start this today, that's when it's coming.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, I'm not doing,
You want to do part-
Go ahead.
no. No, there's a daycare right next door, Steer. Are we gonna consider that at all
No, sir.
tonight?
We're just looking to change the language in the code.
Okay. But as far as I'm concerned, if this is voted in, let's go to the commissioners, and I don't know what they'll do with this. But in my opinion, if you allow adult businesses of any kind in this city, and you can frame it in any language you want to, eventually, who's gonna say that we're not gonna we're gonna take these adult people here, these adult sexual orientated businesses, adult bookstores, if you had many motion pictures, and let's put them in commercial, where we don't have to have this and get these people in here. There's nothing wrong with body piercing. I have nothing against people that do that, they're good people. But I'm looking down the road, I'm not looking a month, I'm looking 5 years.
That slippery slope.
It's not a slippery slope in my book, not in my book, it's not. Not a slippery slope at all. But I don't wanna start something that will end up with an adult sexually orientated business in our city, I don't want that here.
That currently, and as the proposed changes that you're considering, will still restrict adult entertainment and sexually oriented businesses to the adult entertainment zoning district. That is a standalone zoning district that would have to come before the planning commission and then 2 readings with the city commission to rezone it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are some minimum separations and other restrictions for those businesses or that zoning district and the buildings in that zoning district too.
But in my opinion, our previous commissioners and our previous planning and zoning commissioners over the past years since 1984, seen this as I think that I've seen it. They put it in a category all by itself. It's separated from commercial, it's separated from residential, and it should be separated from any of our schools or any of our daycares. And there's one next door, and I do have a concern. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome. Mr. Rick, Mr. Beck,
Questions?
yes, sir.
Okay. What are the definitions within our municipal code of a body piercing parlor?
It doesn't have a definition, it's
That's-
self-explanatory.
What are, no, it's not self-explanatory.
You want that?
What is the definition of a tattoo establishment within our municipal code?
It is not defined.
Okay. Most of the definitions I've run across emphasizes the fact that a body piercing parlor is, if you want to use percentages, is that 95% of the activities that occur there are body piercings. I mean, that's what they're in business for. The definitions I've seen in other cities allow for Dillard's or Macy's to pierce ears or whatever, because that is not a parlor. That is essentially it's, you know, I guess, what do you call that? A department store. And that's just a side activity of service, of selling your product. So what I'm saying is, the body piercing parlors, in my opinion, you know, I'll be honest with you, I oppose it probably for different reasons, but primarily a lot of the same reasons that Mr. Gregory opposes it. But I think what we're saying here, you know, if I'm gonna have to disagree with you that it would disallow a Macy's or a Dillard's or whatever from piercing ears. And by the same token, tattoo establishments, in most of the definitions, like in Metro or whatever, that is a group of people whose primary business is tattoo. And that does not include physicians who tattoo eyebrows for cosmetic reasons or whatever. So perhaps we should be looking at the definitions of these activities, body piercing versus tattoos, and perhaps use that would allow, quite honestly, I think currently if we have Dillard's in Millersville now, it would allow piercing. Because, you know, I don't happen to found any case law in the state of Tennessee, but that's normally the case. But these, as Mr. Smith pointed out, a body piercing parlor is, their primary objective is piercing.
So as a secondary activity,
It's not
perhaps
just
we can-
saying, it's a casual activity to sell their products, just like Mr. Smith pointed out. You know. So I would oppose it for those reasons, and for the reasons that Mr. Gregory was mentioned earlier. I think, you know, if we have somebody, if we have a department store that wants to come in here and know they're gonna do piercing, we may wanna look at this again and make sure that we have some definitions in there that are comparable, that complement.
well, we've opened we've opened the matter, and I can make an adjustment to each of those, and we'll let that secondary or associated or,
I guess associated is primary.
but it's not a primary activity.
And I do believe, you know, like Macy's or Dillard's, I think the piercing of ears, if I'm not mistaken, you know, Ms. Wade, correct me since you have pierced ears, I think when you buy the jewelry there, the piercing is not charged. You're not charged for it. That's just complimentary because you're buying pierced earrings, and they pierce it just as a matter of fact so that you can wear those earrings. So they're not making money off of it, per se. The piercing itself, they're making money off the pierced earrings.
Some people do it like that, some don't.
If they're not charging for it, then they're not piercing.
Well, the piercing is just.
They're piercing,
They're
but
not
they're not charging.
They're not charging for the service.
So if they don't
They're
charge,
not charging, I consider it a parlor.
I would prefer not to go that route in defining it as allowable because they don't charge for it. Because the next thing you know, we have other businesses that are providing different services or product that they may not be charging for. They may be making their income other ways. So if we're gonna allow the secondary services, just because they don't charge for it, I don't want it.
An associated service.
That that could be abused easily.
I think there's a time and place for everything, you know, and like, I'd hate to see a jewelry store not come here if we do have some type of mall one day because of this. We can certainly limit where it goes, whether it's piercing, body art, or whatever they want to call it.
Well, in this case, and I'll back up, that if we allow piercings and tattoos by special exception, then it's at the BZA's discretion whether, if it's a 5% activity or 95% activity, to approve it or deny it. Just an idea.
I have no idea, I'd like to see it once you put it together, but right now, as this currently stands, the changes made here, in all respects, I can't support it.
Have we had anybody inquire about it?
Yes, we have. We've had at least 2 property owners ask.
And I would assume Louisville Highland.
Yes, sir.
If you wanna take another stab at it in another direction, perhaps we could look at it again. As far as I'm concerned, you may have the votes here, but as far as I'm concerned, the way this is currently changed, I can't support it.
I'm going to abstain because I don't have enough information.
I'll just withdraw the motion.
Let's see.
Anybody else would like to say?
Please withdraw your second.
First time I got one in, I didn't think of that.
All right, Mr. Petty, you withdraw your motion.
Do withdraw my motion.
All right.
So till further.
This,
And we'll,
Let's revisit.
let's table this.
actually, just for point of order for the Robert's rules, I'd like Michelle to recognize that this died for a lack of a motion.
Okay.
Lack of a second.
And I'd rather not table it or continue it, just let
Bring it up again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Extra writing for you.
Well, she's gotten very good at it.
Item E, minor subdivision plat 1228 Little Highway, Sumter County map 111 parcel 61.
Time are share. All right, Mr. Chairman, I've just passed out a copy of the proposed subdivision plat. What we're doing is taking the 80-acre parent parcel and carving out about an 1.5 acre portion for the commercial shopping center, not strip center, shopping center, located just down the road in the corner of Louisville and Slater's Creek. I will make a note that while my recommendation was conditional, we've straightened out some matters with the surveyor. There's some question about some utilities and whatnot. The surveyor added some additional language to the general notes, essentially identifying that there may be other utilities on the property that are not identified on the subdivision plan. Typically with a subdivision plan, you identify all the improvements that are on the parcels. And in this case, it was unclear until about an hour ago, but we squared it away with the surveyor. This does meet the zoning requirements, although it is an existing non-conformance because of the setback encroachments, but that's not a matter for your concern. It just is what it is. This will be the third parcel spun off from the parent parcel. You have Precision Metals, which I think is identified as Section 2 plat, and then the mini storage in that small manufacturing facility there was I think Section 2 of the Reynolds plat. So this I don't believe they identified it as Section 3, but this is the third parcel to be spun off. It does meet our requirements, and I'm recommending approval.
I move that we approve the minor subdivision plat 1212 Louisville Highway, Sumner County map 121, parcel 61.
Say what? Smith, you missed that.
I'm done.
Yeah, take it away, you don't do it again.
Discussion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, please?
Yes, sir. Couple questions. On the frontage of this parcel here, can you identify, I guess, the right-of-way easement, if one exists there, is that in the floodway zone?
There is a right-of-way, in front of the building, that is US Highway 31W. It's estimated that it's a 100-foot right-of-way, which, just for clarity, your right-of-way line shares in common with your property boundary line. To my knowledge, there is not any additional easements, on the front of the property.
So for 50 foot from the center line that we're showing here?
Generally, yes. And unfortunately, there's not enough data, even with TDOT, our friends there at the Department of Transportation, to know exactly the dimensions of the right-of-way, but it's assumed that it's 100 feet there.
Do we have room for a sidewalk?
We do.
Okay, where would it, you have it?
That's to be determined yet, but there appears to be enough room for
On the current
the
property?
parking, yes, yes.
Even if we put a sidewalk in here, it's still be enough room to park.
Our engineers think so, yes, ma'am.
That's all my questions.
Any other question? Are you ready for question? Any other comment? Are you ready for question? If no comment, are you ready for question?
Yep.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The record show it passed by unanimous vote. Item F, minor subdivision plat 7541, Darby Road. This is what you talked about last month, wasn't it? You mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because this board approved the recommendation to the city commission of the rezoning of, because currently, this is a bizarre parcel. I have no idea why it was subdivided as it was, but it met the legal standards for a non-approved subdivision plat, because you can record a plat in the state of Tennessee without planning commission approval as long as all of the resulting parcels are at least 5 acres. And if you look at the map here, this hook-shaped parcel and the parcel that's inside the hook together are over 10 acres. And when they split it, it met the legal standard, although it was irregularly shaped, it made it difficult to access, and frankly, I wouldn't have recommended it, but it's done. So we're dealing with it now. Another local developer picked this up. He built it's just about to complete a home on Darby there. So he's proposing to carve out about 11,000 square feet of parcel for that, to rezone it to residential R5, which it meets those standards. And then the balance of the hook, he's looking to split for 2 parcels and leave an easement for access and utilities along that narrow finger there. That narrow finger does meet our minimum 50-foot width requirements. So I'm not seeing anything that's irregular other than the shape. But as far as from a technical perspective, this does meet our requirements. Honestly, I walked out onto it, and all three sites have amazing views, and I've got to commend the developer for that kind of forward thinking to figure this one out. But the resulting parcels are similarly sized to other lots in that area of Darby Road, also over to Ruby and Oak Forest. So this is nothing unusual. It fits. I'd like you to approve the minor subdivision plat as this is just a sketch. The surveyor is running behind. He wasn't able to get me the actual plat document. So this is a conditional approval once we get a proper subdivision plat document, and also once the city commission approves the rezoning, which I anticipate to happen next week. So just trying to get ahead of the game here and just move this through the approval process, but I'm recommending a conditional approval on it.
I make a motion to approve the minor subdivision plat 7541 Darby Road.
I'll second it. Is that, this parcel here, is that too steep for building? It's about 100 foot taller than.
It appears to be pretty, it's possible it could, but there's already a house on that parcel. So in order, yes, sir, in the front, right on Darby Road there. So in order to build another home on that, they would either have to raise the existing home, demo it, or divide that parcel. I think they would have a difficult time with that because of the narrowness of where the house is currently located, to be able to have at least a 50-foot width strip of land to get to any other parts of the bigger parcel.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. That's my unanimous vote, please. That concludes the action items. We'll have a very brief Development Service Department report relative to the Board of Zoning Appeal meeting and the planning and zoning appeals.
There was one item on the June 5th BZA agenda that was a request to reduce the setback over in Quailwood Estates for in addition to the home, looking to extend the garage in a pergola or breezeway over it. There's a 2-foot encroachment that they were requesting. The BZA approved it unanimously. There was another item that was pulled from the agenda. There is a 14-acre parcel west of the interstate on Bethel Road that the owners are proposing townhomes on. They have met the minimum requirements for water, domestic water, as well as fire suppression. But for whatever reason, the owner withdrew the request for the last week's BZA. I'm not quite sure why. This was conveyed to me by his realtor, but they're on hold right now. I don't have any other further information, but I'm hoping that does go through. The conceptual plan looks like a pretty decent proposal, and I support it, but the developer withdrew it. So that was the only other discussion on the agenda. The BZA wanted a little more information on it, even though we weren't taking action, and I felt comfortable sharing that. For planning and zoning activities, I am pleased to share with you that it sounds like the Jones parcel, 155 acres across from Station 2, is in play. It's under contract, is my understanding, and we're looking at a substantial development, including a 250,000 square feet of commercial and office on it. The developers are very interested in the mixed-use concept for that, so I'm thrilled once that gets closed to get them in the office here and get them moving on their developments. That will be a huge impact to the city as far as population and probably more importantly, property tax and sales tax. And it would be great if we have that first substantial step in the development of the 104 exit. And I'm really, really excited to see that come in. We're still looking for a building inspector. We had a number of applicants. Unfortunately, none of them were at the minimum qualifications. We're also about to advertise for a new code enforcement and building permit technician. We had a change in staff on that just recently, and we'll be looking for one of those, as well as a city manager. We had the MTAS's assistants, I think, brought in a total of 9 applicants, and they'll be purging through those and making a recommendation probably, I'm hoping by next week at the city commission meeting, to shortlist at least 3 or 4 of the candidates. We're still shooting to see if we can get a city manager in place by, say, mid-July. But all in all, the city's been running well, even without a full-time city manager. The department heads have come together and really pulling through. We're taking on a lot of extra work around here, but we're making it happen, and we're keeping the public happy, and that's our primary goal and responsibility here. So it's getting done. So that's about it from my world. Y'all heard any rumors? Please feel free to share, because I'll chase them down and follow them up if you have anything that you want me to take a look at, or that you've heard out there.
Thank you. All right, is now item 9, commissioner comments and general discussion. Mr. Gregory.
I do. What I mentioned last month's meeting, I believe it was similar to Trace, that's subdivision that we was changing the layout for that guy. What's his name? Mr. Scruggs?
Stokes.
Lamar Stokes.
Lamar Stokes. Yeah, I remember the man. But that detention pond going up on the left-hand side of that road concerning his subdivision, I asked the question, who was giving you time to get an answer. Who's going to maintain the detention pond?
I apologize, I have not had a chance to listen to the recordings of those 3 planning commission meetings from 2007. I don't have an answer for you yet.
That's okay. That's okay. It's still growing.
I'm sure it is.
Very much. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. I'm still upset because
I'm
you say
saving it for next week.
He's making a list over
He's
there.
making a spell. Mr. Payne? Mr. Petty?
No.
All right. No, all right. All right, mark your calendars for July the 10th, and we'll gather again. See what goes on in the world of planning and zoning in Millersville, Tennessee. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Mr. Bell?
Second.
Mr. Aldridge? All in favor? Thank you, we're gone.
I don't have rough hands.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Did I show you that? I didn't